Games for everyone are just that. Games that offer a gameplay experience that we've found plays really well for all different kinds of gamers. These games also tend to have a relatively high player count, making them really good fodder for game gatherings where tastes can vary. So if you're shopping for an eclectic group of gamers, or if you're buying games for folks who maybe don't have a lot of variety in their collection but might be open to something new, why don't you check out our list of games for everyone.
Gnar from Pandasaurus Games presents itself as a Viking-themed game of exploration, but this absolutely gorgeous hand management and set collection game is really pretty abstract. But beside that, Gnar is a fantastic game that is easy to learn and manages to deliver an engaging experience without being overly complex. At its heart, Gnar is a racing game, as the first to 40 points is the winner. Each turn, players will either play new Vikings into their ship's crew, or they will use those Vikings to explore foreign lands. Cards come in one of 5 suits, and each time you add a Viking to your crew, you will re-trigger the sign-on bonus that each Viking of that suit already has. So, getting more and more Vikings gives you bigger and bigger bonuses. However, to explore lands, you will need to spend Vikings from your crew, meaning that there's a really interesting ebb and flow as you build up and then dismantle your engine over and over throughout the course of the game. You also have opportunities to improve your reputation, which guarantees a passive point income, which can really sneak up on players who choose to ignore it. Gnar's gameplay is easy to engage, and the game never really overstayed its welcome. It's easy to teach, and we recommend using the optional artifact cards right from the beginning. For such a relatively small box, Gnar is beautifully produced and extremely playable, and we think it will fit on basically any gaming table.
When we first saw Milkman years and years ago, it was in prototype form, and we've been eagerly anticipating its release ever since. Now, beautifully published by Dice Hate Me Games, Milkman is a game of competitive dairy delivery. Each player is managing their own dairy farm as well as delivery route, competing to complete the most contracts and earn victory points. The gameplay is driven by dice rolling, and each round players will need to take actions based on those dice rolls. Cash can be used to re-roll dice as needed, or to upgrade your farm and your truck, which makes it possible to tackle bigger and bigger deliveries. The thing to keep in mind, though, is that Milkman isn't a very long game at all. It's just 4 rounds at max player count, so you're not really going to get a chance to do everything that you really want to do every game. That's going to keep things very tight and focused as you push towards the endgame. The good news, though, is when you do manage to pull off the completion of one of those big contracts and earn that big pile of points, it feels so satisfying that you'll absolutely be ready to re-rack the game and play it again. Milkman comes with several in-box modules that you can swap in and out to add variety and complexity to the game, making it really easy to sort of tune up or down depending on the gaming experience that you and your table want to have, which makes it perfect as a game for everyone.
We covered the art project earlier this year, and we haven't stopped playing it since. This cooperative game of art reclamation has players working together to manage limited resources and movement in order to rescue stolen art from the despicable White Hand organization. It's got vibes similar to those other cooperative games, such as Pandemic and Flashpoint, but the art project brings unique flavor and mechanics all its own, and delivers them with such beautiful presentation that we never get tired of getting it to the table. What gives the art project its staying power for us is how much each of the 6 maps play differently, giving tons of variety in this otherwise small package. And while some folks might find some of the dice-driven randomness frustrating, we love the tension that it added to the gameplay. Pair that with the fact that players can act in any order they choose, which increases the cooperative strategic thinking, and we found there's a lot to love in this small, beautiful box.
So full disclosure, Jess actually works with Ravensburger on Lorcana, but that has not influenced our decision to add it to this year's buying guide at all. Lorcana is a collectible card game that features absolutely tons of brand new, unique Disney art of iconic characters. You and your fellow players are Illumineers, special people who can call on alternate versions of these iconic characters to do battle with each other and, critically, gather the lore that is necessary to win the game. Gameplay is going to be familiar to those who are familiar with other collectible card games, but Lorcana has incredibly accessible rules designed for newcomers and CCG pros alike. Card interactions can be really engaging, and building thematic decks is always a lot of fun. Personally, I've been experimenting with a Magic Broom deck that I think is a real winner. Lorcana is easy to learn, and that tends to mean that younger players or new players are going to have an easy time diving in, but there's definitely enough complexity here that even somebody like me, who's been playing CCGs for many years, still has something to dig into. It's not just a kid's game. While CCGs are commonly head-to-head, Lorcana doesn't really have an official player count, and I've personally been involved in games that had as many as 6 or even 8 players, and everything worked out really well. If you're a big Disney fan and you're looking to get into unique, interestingly designed card game, or if you're a CCG fan who might be open to some Disney magic, I definitely recommend checking out Lorcana, specifically by grabbing the Gateway box, which comes with 2 pre-made decks and is everything you need to get started.
Sometimes you just need a silly, quick game that everyone can learn in a minute and dive straight into. And oh boy, does Dropholter fit the bill. This little dexterity game from Oink Games really couldn't be simpler. Each round, you'll start with a handful of objects. A card gets flipped, indicating the objects you will need to be holding. The rest must be dropped. The first player to do so correctly and grab the ghost wins the round. Your prize is a tiny bell that you have to hold on to with the rest of your stuff in future rounds. The bells are your victory points. First to 5 wins, and if you drop them, they're gone. See, I told you it was silly. Dropholter makes people feel alternately awkward and brilliant, as you'll desperately struggle to manipulate your handful of strangely shaped objects without the benefit of your other hand. The agony of accidentally dropping a bell cannot be overstated. But those turns where you get it just right and lunge for the ghost before anyone else manages it feels incredible. Dropholter isn't a deep or strategic game, and it absolutely doesn't have to be. We're sure they'll have a place on nearly any gamer's collection and is perfect for taking and playing on the go.
Now, it's true that Wandering Towers came out a couple of years ago, back in 2022, but we only just played it recently, and we think it absolutely belongs on your shopping list of games that everyone can enjoy. The wizards in Wizarding Tower have a very simple goal: be the first to fill their potions and make it back to Raven's Keep. Easy, right? Well, sure, until you realize that the only way to fill those potions is to trap your opponent's wizards in the wondrous Wandering Towers that are circling the land, and of course that your opponents are trying to do the exact same thing to you. One of our favorite aspects of Wandering Tower is its table presence, but the cardboard towers aren't just pretty set dressing. Over the course of the game, you and your fellow wizards will use action cards to move yourselves and the towers around the board. As the towers move, they'll stack and unstack in segments, possibly trapping wizards that are stacked beneath them. What this means is that Wandering Towers isn't just a movement management game, it's also a memory puzzle. As your wizards get covered by towered segments, you've got to remember where they ended up, or else if you lose track of them, you'll have a really hard time eventually moving them all to Raven's Keep, which is the only way to win. The puzzle is really quite simple, but with both wizards and towers constantly moving, changing sides, stacking, restacking, it's a lot harder than it sounds. Oh, and those potions that you've been desperately trying to fill to win the game, you can spend them to use powerful board-manipulating magic spells, but of course doing so puts you one step further from victory, so you have to be really strategic about when and how you spend them. Wandering Towers is one of those great games that starts with a really simple premise and executes it really effectively. It's easy to learn and really fun to play at any player count, and even has a solo, a team, a cooperative, and even what they call a nasty variant. So no matter what kind of gaming experience you're looking to have at the table, Wandering Towers is probably a good fit. Hey, Meeple and I thank you for watching. If you want to see more of our reviews, please click on either of these playlists. One of them is our full-length review series, and the other one is Game in a Minute, where we tell you everything you need to know about a game in about 60 seconds. If you'd like to subscribe, please click the G and ring the bell so that you get a notification every time we publish. And if you like what we do and want to support us, please check out links to our Patreon below. We'll see you next game.